Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our podcast, The Data Driven Supply Chain, with Yacine. And the topic today that we're discussing, kind of a bit of continuation of our previous discussion from automation, is digital maturity in manufacturing and the impact it has on procurement. So, yeah, digital maturity is, again, one of those things a lot of organizations aspire to get, especially in the manufacturing space, given the time and age today. COVID accelerated a lot of companies to start thinking seriously about digital transformation. And while there's billions of dollars spent in this process, a lot of government programs around having organization become digitally visible, digitally mature, and digitally available, it's still few organizations that again stand out and have made meaningful progress. Others have tried it, said, "Hey, this is nice and good, but it's not having any meaningful impact on the overall business," and then gave up on it. And then there's some who have been completely opposed to it. They've been more around, guys, we know how we run our shop. Businesses work. We know how business works, and it works properly this way. So we don't see it as something that's going to maximize value going forward. So yeah, that's kind of like where it stands. Yasin, what's your thoughts and what's your experience been around this space?
Yeah, definitely. I do like this topic because I've seen a lot of stats saying that it's especially in the manufacturing sector, it's still not enough. A lot of surveys are saying that some some um, um, some leaders who want to be more mature digitally, especially the younger ones, like the new generation that knows like how technology works and stuff. But the subtopic in digital maturity that I'm very interested about is um, at least having a digital visibility, right? Just being digitally visible. I think that's the first step. Like if you're not even digitally visible anywhere, um, either you're on stealth and you don't want to have customers, or uh, you have a big problem, especially in this day and age where everything is so connected. There's a massive opportunity to optimize your company if you're a manufacturer, just by being digitally visible. So I've seen a lot of manufacturer and I've visited a lot of them, and it range a lot, right? It range from the guys that have like KPIs, real time KPIs on the like projected the on the wall with like robots and stuff, and then everybody's punching their numbers and they can analyze everything. To I went into this shop, they were not even physically visible. I didn't even see the sign, right? When I got there, I just had the number and I went in there, and then it's like all files and papers. There's a old computer, and then they show me their shop, and it's like um, I don't know, say it's a cavern. Like you get into this. There's absolutely no automation whatsoever anywhere, but they're there and they have customers and they're running. So it's a very interesting topic, especially for manufacturer when you have procurement professionals trying to find new suppliers. You have disruption making like the whole supply chain much more flexible, and where the locality of a manufacturing clusters might be less relevant than pre-pandemic, let's say. Yeah.
So let's sort of like wind this down from the top. How do you define digitally mature in the sense of like, is it me having a website or I go and make an Insta? I was actually talking to one manufacturer and he laughed me off and I said, "Hey, do you have an Instagram page?" And I was naive and I asked him like, "Hey, this is," he's like, "Yeah, no, it's not gonna make sense. I can go and make a Facebook page or an Instagram page, but Is it really gonna add any value to my business? Probably not. So how do you define in terms of like the minimum criteria a manufacturer today should have in terms of being digitally mature, and what is like kind of like the epitome of being digitally mature? And this is kind of like, so how would you define digital maturity from that lens?
That's a very, very good question. And I like your Instagram example because there's also been a trend in other kind of industry, like, hey, are you in TikTok? And people are laughing at this, like, what am I gonna do on TikTok? But even manufacturing company, I've listened to that podcast, industrial marketing show, check it out. And some manufacturer are over there, right? So it depends on what you want, right? If like your thing is only local and then you don't need to get any new customers because you have this specific deal and you don't want to grow your shop, you're digitally mature enough, right? Doesn't matter if this is what you want, this is good. But what I'm referring to digital maturity is just like matching with um, uh, like the rest of the market, right? Because then, if let's say your customers are somewhere else and you're not visible, right, and they stop doing business like they were doing before, and you're not digitally mature enough to match the competition, you're dead, and that's it, right? You can't get more contract in, and then you have to close the shop. But if this is not your setup, then you're digitally mature enough. If we define this more like technologically mature, it will be like not wanting like I don't know, a steam engine way back in the day because like, hey, I don't believe in this tech. Okay, good, you don't believe it, but like, do you need it? If the answer is no, you're good. If the answer is yes, and you can improve your productivity, then get that thing, right? And with digital maturity and just being digital, what it means is that you can have improved operation on your side. So on your side, you can produce more, higher quality, figure out what's the problem, and iterate. Information-wise, that's it. And then on the getting more customer side, right? Because if your customers are not picking the phone anymore, or you have to get there to physically to sell to them, but there's a way to sell to them digitally. Let's say they're on TikTok, right? Let's say all of your customers or potential target customers are on TikTok, right? It would be dumb not to try to get them and be on TikTok. It doesn't matter what the thing is. It can be like Tumblr, it can be like MySpace, Reddit, whatever it is. If you want to get more customers and grow your business, and your customers are somewhere else, you have to be digitally mature enough to serve like more customers in a better way and whatever, and to reach them. And this is the part of like digitally visible that I think some manufacturers are just like glossing over, because it's a very important one. If you're not digitally visible, your current customers are leaving or whatnot because they're finding more customers that are more digitally visible. You have a big issue, and you should try to fix it by upping your digital maturity. So for me, a company that is completely digitally mature is that competition-wise, well, first, size-wise, they want to grow, right? And they need to get more customers of some sort. And they can match the competition or better technologically and digitally in order to get to that growth. And they understand that. That's the topmost digitally mature. It's not about ERP. It's not about getting on Instagram and TikTok. It's about matching like where you want to go as a company and using the digital tools that are there to do that.
Cool. Yeah, that's a great point. And it's interesting you brought up TikTok, because there's a lot of manufacturers now actually on TikTok and using it. I'm not sure if they're using it as a strategy to attract customers, but definitely using it as a strategy to attract talent. They'll post videos of how advanced their machinery is, and they know they want to sort of get this young talent, which is whether you like it or not, is spending a big portion of their day on TikTok. So that's kind of like an interesting dimension as well. In addition to customers, what those platforms can do. But coming back to the part about digital maturity, why do you think it has been so hard, especially for the manufacturing industry, to catch up with others. Like if you look at retail, for example, it has been completely disrupted by the likes of Amazon and other e-commerce players. You look at insurance, you look at banking, all of that. They've almost had like a complete shift in the way those industries are even thought of today compared to how they were. But when you come back to manufacturing, our industry, it's still not there yet. And first of all, why do you think that's the case? Is it not relevant to the manufacturing industry, or is it just generally slow? Why do you think it has not been on the same level to catch up as the other industries when it comes to digital maturity?
It's a very good question, and I think it has to do with like it's not about consumer, right? It's about business to business. Usually, that's how like the manufacturing sector is set up, right? So this is one portion of it, and the other portion of it is that there's a big impact on locality, at least in North America, right? Because North American manufacturer, no way they're going to ship something to China and be competitive, right? But the other way around works. So if you actually look at it, I've had multiple reports of manufacturing in China being much more digitally visible and mature than manufacturing in North America. And the thing is, they have a big business incentive to do that thing, right? While here, it still can work, right? It still can work locally because let's say you're doing welded assembly and it's like tons of thing. Well, you better put your shop at the right spot, right? Because then your shipping will start to cost VAT, and you will not be competitive. So then when you get there, you ensure that you're able to sell within a radius that makes sense to you. But this also block you from getting more customers abroad. But it might make sense that you don't have to do that. So I think it has to do with like the dynamic of the industry, right? You just need to, usually it's better like if you know the person, you can talk to them because it's so complicated, the custom stuff that you need to make in custom manufacturing. There's logistic involved into this thing, and like currently the manufacturer don't need usually more customers unless like the very not digitally mature one that are just like so far behind. But most manufacturers just like at least in Canada, they have too much job to do. So why should I become digital mature or revamp some processes if I'm already like turning off work, right? And the work that comes to them through word of mouth. This is fantastic, right? But it means that as soon as the word of mouth dry out or like something else is fighting over this, you don't have much lever to do anything. You just have to go out there and get more customers and stuff. But yeah, I think that's kind of the reason why the entire business is kind of industry is kind of on word of mouth, a lot of it on trust. So you trust more the people that you know nearby until there's a very much cheaper option, digitally visible somewhere else. And there's some incentive based on the operation that make it not as much rewarding as, let's say, a bank that can now like have customers everywhere in the world.
That's an excellent point, and I think if we take COVID as a teacher and of anything, it's what I think one of the things that sort of opened everybody's eye on is agility is the new currency in manufacturing and in business. If you're too slow, it's just a matter of time when you'll go bankrupt. And we saw that happening with a lot of companies at that time, and you see it happening even in one of the most tech savvy companies today. So you kind of see that happening all over. So yeah, I think overall, like there's a lot of intent and a lot of I would say desire, intention to get digitally transformed from manufacturing. Now you see that a lot of projects happening. But yeah, I was reading some of the stats, like 78% of the companies attempting digital transformation fail in their objective, and they're not able to get it right, even despite the intent. Yeah, and why do you think that happens to those companies? In the sense of like, hey, I'm investing. I had my TikTok page or whatever. I did all of that, but still, it's not bringing the value, or it's not giving me the results that I thought it would have. And let's get specific. Let's talk about specifically procurement. Um, why do you think those projects fail? Question one, when companies have the intention and they try to do it. And what do you think companies that are like intending to go for those projects should sort of look at first?
Yeah, well, and that's what I was saying at the beginning. Like Tumblr, TikTok, Instagram, it doesn't matter. It absolutely doesn't matter if you're doing it this way. Because this other guy told me like get a bunch of customer over there. Um, that's not the way to go. Like I think all digitally, like if you're trying to bump up your digital maturity and just like transform a bit yourself, um, in all cases you have to ask yourself, why the hell are you doing this? Right? Why? If you can't find the why, don't do it. Right? Just don't do it. Like if I don't know, if you're a software company and you start to put a bunch of IoT into for processes in your team, it might be completely useless. You might just be wasting your time, right? You don't have to get the check mark on the Industry 4.0 bingo card, right? It's fine if there's some stuff that you're not doing. You don't have to do VR if you don't have. You're doing like 2D stuff. It's good. So I think that's the very first problem, is that it doesn't start with the why. And if you start with the why, let's say I can't hire, right? I need to reach a younger population. It might lead you to TikTok or Instagram, and then just like hiring a bunch of people to like take picture in my shop, and then continue to do that, post reels every day, and then just have conversation podcast with the younger generation, or teach them stuff. That might lead you this way, and then now you're suddenly digitally mature a bit more because you understand why you're doing this, and you can stop there, right? Maybe it's just about doing more social media and having an account like this, and then you get a bunch of CVs, and then you're like, okay, we're good with this. Now we understand that we need to reach the younger generation, whatever it is, because that's the setup, right? Maybe the next step after that is like, good, have a bunch of younger people in here because they're the only one that want to get the job. How do I train them? Now you may be going into like some more digitally digital solution to get like work instruction digitalized, so that they can all learn about it easily without having to go through a paper like with InPilot or DeepSight. But that should be the path. You start with the why, and then you have no biases and try to solve it. And weirdly enough, all of these manufacturers, some of them are engineers. This is what they're doing, right? They're starting with the 5 whys, and they're starting with this ideology of mind of like, okay, no bias, let's figure out how to make this part better, or stuff like that. But when it comes to their business completely, and like their digital strategy, this is where some of them kind of fail. And those that are very good at this both understand the technology and understand the business wise of why I'm doing this thing. And I think that if you start with this, it's easier to take a small step and say like, this is good, we did it, right? Instead of going into a weird project of AI, blockchain, whatever, and then it just doesn't work. We're like, millions of dollars in this thing for nothing.
Definitely, and I love that you started it. You started your answer with the why, because I think digital maturity, digital transformation, these are not the end. These are means to an end. And I guess what you have to understand in the mental model is it's not a checkbox that I need to check because I'm going to get more customers. This is something, it's a tool that I'm going to use to achieve the same objective, or 10x the same objective that I was trying to achieve earlier. So I think some of the questions that I can think of that manufacturers should ask themselves is like, do we have a clear strategic direction, vision, and objectives? Yes, if the answer is that's sort of established, then you say, okay, where are we in our digital discovery journey? Like, be honest with ourselves and say, okay, guys, yeah, this side, for example, customer acquisition side, we're not digital at all. And if we employ some digitalization on that side, we can 10x our acquisition. So digital tools are only gonna help you change the scale of things that are already working. But for example, you don't have a customer acquisition strategy. You're like, okay, I had a guy and he used to call a few people and I used to get customers. I don't think any digitalization will help you there, or it's going to be so painfully slow that you're going to give up on it eventually.
Yeah.
And then I think the third thing I've seen is like you can have these two things in place, but if you don't have the buy-in from the organization, like there's a bunch of people who are opposing this, or for example, the executives are like, they're not sold to the idea of adopting this. No matter you go and work with McKinsey or any of the big firms, it's going to fail. The project is not going to work because the buy-in is not there, the belief is not there. So yes, you have to kind of like take that step, and then sort of then the magic starts to happen, and then you see with organizations that yeah, this is how it actually works, because there is buy-in from the top and then there's buy-in from the bottom as well.
And on this part, this is very interesting because like the leaders that don't want to digitalize, right, usually have people with very poor a case to present for why they should be doing this. And then they see these cases and they're like, it worked. And now you're saying me I have to take risks for what? Just to digitalize. Why should I do that? And it's also like, if you're in this situation and you're whatever, you see all of these problems and you think, if we had like an ERP software, or if we had like this thing, it would be much better. Well, build a case about why and present that case. I think I found a way to make more money in this shop, right? And if the leader is like, I don't care about this, then that's it. You don't need to present your Instagram social content strategy anymore. You don't even have to say that. You just can stop there and think about something else. But if it's like, okay, that's interesting, here's how we're going to do it by digitalizing ourselves just a bit. And this is what I think we should be doing, right? Maybe it's by having less defects, so you have a better process over here. It will cost that much. The ROI will be this and that. Maybe it's going to be about having a better digital marketing strategy, and it will cost this and much. And I think that will work, right? For these and this reason. Okay, now whatever the medium, it's just about, can I get to this point, this new point that I desire? And I think it has to do a bit with like communication. It has to do with this. So a lot of companies out there is like, hey, get an ERP. Why should I get that, right? And then at some point, the cool thing is that at some point, leader will just like realize the why themselves, because there's this event that just crashed everything, right? So for example, pandemic, right? Oh, suddenly we can't travel anymore in trade show. What do I do for next year to get more clients? If my whole strategy was built on that, I have to figure it out, right? Oh, the price of raw materials increases. What did I do? Right? If all my part I'm making for my clients need that specific raw material, and I'm not digitally enough, visible enough to get more clients in this other segment that I've kept in the back burner, which is now the only segment that works, because like a 30 weeks shipping won't cut it anymore. Right?
Makes sense. So moving on to somebody who's like a shop out of Windsor or somewhere in the remote area outside Quebec City, what would be your advice of how they can start this process? So they've been a shop, family shop, machine shop, running for like 10 years now. COVID came, took most of the business away. They finally have recovered some of it, but now they're thinking to step into this arena of getting digitally mature. Where do they start? What is it they do? Like, what are some of the steps, concrete steps you would suggest that they should take?
Yeah. So the concrete step I would start with is just like, start with figuring out why you're doing this and document that properly. And the second step I would do is just like figure out what's out there, what's the tech, and then get people that understand this to help you out, understand the impact these techs have on your things, right, on your objective. And if you can get that, this kind of two-way understanding about, okay, we're trying to get there, and then there's all of these different things, and then this is how they connect. That's how you're going to be able to build your mind about what to do. The worst thing you can do is You set the why and you find the first thing and then you go through it, right? There's a deep understanding that need to happen. And in most of these shops that we're talking about, what I've seen that work the best is when there's a younger generation taking over, right? Yeah, I don't know why. It's always better. Like I think that because they inherently understand the technology and they don't have all this preconception. They like they understand how to get to that why using these things. One of the stark example is like there was a shop that got bought, and the other guy was there for like 25 years, and then the two guys they were younger, they were just out of university and they understood a bunch of stuff. They were able to like 5x the revenue within 2 years. And when I was there to talk to them, they said like when we bought this shop, the guy didn't understand the basics now of how customer want to be sold to, so he never visited like his big client or stuff like that. He was just always in his shop taking a phone call and that's it, and then being that in this setup. But now they don't understand that in this economy you have to be this more connected. So they started to do more digitally mature end behavior. But it always starts with like some younger generation that kind of understand it. So if you're starting from nothing and you need help, right? Write up your why you want to do this, right? And then figure out trustworthy people that can help you explain these stuff and guide you through that thing, right? I think that's super important. You have to understand in what environment you are, where you want to get, and what's the trap in this environment and what tools you can use.
Cool. And I guess the last question before we conclude would be like for companies that have somewhat sort of set up the bit of the basics in place, and I guess would have had some fair results. I wouldn't say really exciting, but have had some results. Like few leads came from here. They were able to process it, got the order and stuff like that. They signed up for some platforms, and they were able to like sort of get themselves out there. What would you suggest as a way for them to assess what they're doing right now, and if it's like if it's the correct implementation or not, or and on the second side would be like how can they sort of use digital as a tool to 10x their growth or move like sort of fulfill all of the promises that they got with digital? How should those guys sort of assess maturity?
Yeah, so those that are already did some steps and are already a bit in this thing. The thing is, it just never stop, right? There will always be more technology. If you look technology 10 years back, it's not enough anymore, right? And it's fine because it's structurally we understand a bit more the thing. There were innovation and now things are better. So you have to continuously improve yourself, and you have to always, I think about that. There's no other way around. So I would set the process in your company to always try to improve yourself and test some stuff out, right? With understanding of what is happening. So if you want to 10x your growth, good, you tested something out, right? It worked. Can you push more here or push better, right? And then you get maybe some consulting on this or whatnot. See what leads over there, but don't stop testing and learning about other things and other better way to do stuff. Like paradoxically, they're already doing this. Most manufacturer with their craft, right? Now we're doing this at the level of the company, so to make the whole company much more efficient. So it's always about continuous improvement and digital continuous improvement, I believe. I'm not saying hire someone to do that for you. It has to be ingrained in the company culture that okay, we're gonna figure out this stuff out, and it just becomes a much more exciting place to be in if we're always trying to be a bit better. Right? I think that's the next step. It's just like you keep pushing where it works, figure out how to be better, and then you keep exploring with some external help.
Yeah, right on target. It's a It's not a race, it's a marathon, it's a journey, and you keep like continuing it. If something doesn't work, you scrap it out, and you find other things and then sort of make it work. So awesome. Thank you so much, Yasin, for your time. And that's all for digital maturity that we had today. Again, don't forget to subscribe. Please do share your comments, suggestions to make the podcast better. And yeah, wish you guys all a wonderful weekend and week ahead.